All right, greetings. I am Dr. Ariba Aslam from the economics department at the University of Lahore. I have around 10 years of teaching and research experience. So I don't know if many people knows, but my expertise lies in behavioral economics. And very interestingly, since this webinar is very, close to my research area, so I would like to tell that my PhD thesis was also on seeing how nudges can be used to improve the behaviors of people. And it was basically to improve the lives of people by making them more digitally and socially included. So if I just be, a little precise, basically the title of my PhD thesis was Keshraya for Inclusive Growth, Nudging Social and Digital Behaviors under Libertarian Paternalism. So that was my PhD thesis. And although since 2020, I have been working a lot in gender economics, but behind that gender economics is always, something related to behavioral economics and nudges and, parental labbing and all those things. So talking about my institution, I'm working at University of Lahore. University of Lahore is not only the biggest private university in Pakistan, but it is also the biggest, and you can say, a university which is highly ranked in South Asia. If I tell you some facts about University of Lahore, we have around 35,000 student body over here. We have 2,000 academic faculty. We have currently 4,000 courses that we are teaching in different departments. We have 200 plus degree programs with us, and we have 40 plus academic departments, 11 faculties, 5 research centers, and 3 technology parks. So this is University of Lahore. Today, we are going to talk about how behavioral economics is shaping the parenting lab at the University of Chicago. So my guest today is Corina Fung. She's a Venezuelan economist at the Harris School of Public Policy of University of Chicago. She's highly passionate about assessing, measuring, and monitoring the results of policies to extend their impact to other communities that can benefit for it. So if I'd be a little bit more precise, since the last year, she has been working for the Behavioral Insights and Parenting Lab at the University of Chicago. So in a brief, we can say the BIP Lab. So the BIP Lab at the University of Chicago basically aims to promote human potential by using their cutting-edge research methods to gain new insights into the science of, you can say, parent decision making. Welcome, Ms. Corina.
Hi, good morning. Well, I think it's good evening already in Pakistan. Thank you so much for the invitation, Ariba. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. And we are honored to host you over here. So tell us about your work at University of Chicago. What's going on there?
Okay, awesome. Well, like you mentioned, I've been working at the BIP lab since October of last year. And since that time, I have been able to work as a research assistant in the About Time project, which is a project that we've recently ended this July. About Time is an RCT that explores which educational tools can help children maximize their learning skills, but also which of these tools can also maximize the time that parents spend learning with their children.
All right, so that sounds really interesting. So let me put a question to you. Can you please elaborate on the key findings from your research, particularly your research regarding the children's mathematical skills in Chicago schools, particularly looking at them through the lens of the Behavioral Insights and Parenting Lab?
Sure. Well, since the About Time project was an RCT, we had around 750 low-income preschoolers in our sample, and we were motivated by the gap that there is in math results between high-income children and low-income children. So we wanted to know, okay, how can we help low-income children get better math learning skills? And to get a better idea of the results that we received, I'm going to talk about the different groups of the intervention. The first one is the control group, children that only received math materials, traditional math materials. Then we have a second group, which is an intervention that children received math materials plus weekly text messages to counter procrastination, which is what we know as present bias in behavioral sciences. Then the third group received the math materials and also weekly text messages, but these messages were promoting growth mindset. And then we have the fourth group, which received digital tablets with math apps. So what was really interesting, the main findings of the experiment, we assessed the kids in their math learning skills before the intervention, after the intervention, and then 6 months after the intervention. And we also surveyed the parents before and after, asking questions about their dynamics with children, how much time they spent with them during homework, and stuff like that. And the main results, which were, to me, they were surprising, was that both the group that received the math materials and the text messages counting trying to counter procrastination, and the kids that received the digital apps were the ones that showed an increase in their math learning skills 6 months later, while the other two groups, the ones that received the text messages with the growth mindset and the groups that only received materials, did not show any increase in their math learning skills. And also these two same groups that showed an increase in their math learning skills, their parents also reported having spent more time with them doing math activities. Like these activities and the text messages they received countering procrastination led them to spend more time with their kids doing those math activities that they received. So to the lab, this is very important because it suggests that parent engagement can actually help children have better educational outcomes and learn better. Another interesting fact is that 17%, sorry, of the parents that only received the materials said that they lost them. They did not know where the materials went, and only 37% finished half, not even the whole activities, half of the materials. So what this tells us is that just giving the materials and just giving, yeah, the different activities is not sufficient for parents to spend time with their kids and therefore increase their learning skills. And an interesting fact also is that in the surveys,
Sorry, I'm
almost
interrupting
all
you.
parents.
Sorry, I'm interrupting
Yeah,
you.
sure.
You just said that that wasn't sufficient. So what was sufficient? That in inclusion to have those materials, what else was needed?
The text messages tackling the present bias, because I think it happens to all of us. We normally want to do things that give us instant satisfaction, but parents were reminded that if they spend time with their kids learning, then in the long term, they can have greater benefits. And I think that's a very important fact, and that's why that treatment group showed an increase in their math skills.
What do you think, Bant? The time that parents spent with their children, was that more beneficial, or the messages that were more beneficial? Or you think that both of these things will only work out if A meets the condition B and B meets the condition A?
I do think so, that spending more time with their kids doing this type of activities will increase their kids' learning abilities. Yeah.
So, do you have, a little bit of comparisons on like which parent, mother or father, who were more spending time with kids, and if fathers were spending more, or if mother was spending more, whose results were more better, or they remained the same?
Yeah, on average, they remain the same. Yeah.
So both, even if a mother or a father, both engages in parenting techniques, particularly related to improving the learning skills of their children, this is going to bring the equivalent results. Okay, so that's really interesting. And what other projects are going on in that lab?
Right now, we're doing the Learning Curiosity project, which is also an RCT around the same sample number. And this work is motivated by research findings that say that conventional academic approaches only succeed to build skills in the short run,
Okay,
but they are not the most effective building complex problem-solving skills or building basic skills in the long term. So this project wants to promote curiosity and critical thinking in children. So we're trying to see which behavioral intervention works best to promote that.
All right. So, based upon your experience over there, particularly your experience in the BIP lab, what do you think some of the, behavioral, you can say behavioral nudges that have really worked in improving the children's outcomes? Or rather, if I say children's learning skills, what are those behavioral skills that have, or you can say behavioral biases, or you can say behavioral nudges that has really helped to improve their skills?
Well, since the lab focuses mainly on how parents can help their kids learn better, so
Yeah.
I think the most important thing, like I mentioned before, is tackling the present bias. When parents are constantly aware that they can use better their time to improve their kids in the long term, then parents do so.
Okay. So how
Parents are
much
like, oh,
time?
right, this will help.
So how much time is enough?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
My question is, how much time is enough? Like how much time parents have spent with their children, which have really improved their skills, on average, if we are going to say.
Mm, our research hasn't come up with specific times of how much time is enough, but the results also show that it's not only a thing of quantity but also quality. For
Yeah.
example, the results with the apps. These apps show that they complement and make the time with parents more efficient. So you don't have to spend 2 hours a day studying math with your kid, just that the time that you spend with them, it's as efficient as possible. And good digital apps help do that.
Can you tell me about some of the digital apps that parents who are listening to us can use for their children's skills?
Sure. Let me. I will have to give you that later because I don't have the name of
Yeah.
the apps on the top of my mind.
But like,
But
are
yeah,
they
I will
accessible?
collect the names.
Are they accessible to everyone? Like, can
Um,
we
I
use it?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. So I think maybe you can share the name with it, and when I'm going to write a review of this webinar, we can add those names in.
Sure.
So
Yes.
all right. So more questions. Could you share any challenges that you have encountered during your research and how you overcome them? That's important, particularly using your insights from the parenting lab.
Yes, I think in this specific project, because it is an RCT, collecting data is definitely not easy. We need a very big sample, and we also have time and money constraints. So we had, for example, in a period of 1 month, we need to um get the parents that were interested in participating, because that's another thing. This is completely optional. We cannot force anyone to participate in the intervention. So we had to collect 700 parents in Chicago that were interested in doing the research. So that was one challenge.
That's a huge sample.
And then we had the challenge of assessing the children. Like, okay, we have the consent. Now we have to take the math test to all these children 3 times. And we had periods of 1 month or 1 month and a half to do that. And for that, we have a very good team of RAs. One group that went to different schools in all around Chicago. I was part of that group, which was very interesting because I also got to know different type of populations in the city, which is a very diverse city. And then there's another group of RAs that did the service, because we not only had to test the children, but we also had to take the service for the parents because we wanted to know the behavioral insights that we were gaining from our intervention. So yeah. And I think the last challenge was getting apps that were beneficial for learning. Like the lab has a team of educators and professionals that studied which apps will actually help children learn. And we also needed apps that were both in English and Spanish, because Chicago has a very high Spanish speaking population. So that was a must. But yeah.
I think that's really interesting. And these are some of the areas, that especially when we are doing the analysis, such as like RCT analysis, we need to cover these lines as well. So have there been any surprising, or let me say unexpected discoveries in your work that have shaped your understanding of child learning and their development, particularly from the perspective of BIP Lab?
Yes. Um, and this thing is what also caught my attention and wanted me to work in the lab is that they focus on parenting. And before that, I used to think that, okay, we want to increase educational outcomes for children, then intervention should be on the students. For example, how much time they study, where do they go to school, if they are in small or big classrooms. But I never thought about doing interventions on the parents. And I think that's very clever because the lab also focuses on the time that kids are like 4 to 6 years old, which is before they go to kindergarten and while they're in kindergarten. And that's the time that normally children spend more time with their parents. So the lab wants to know how can we maximize the time that that time that parents spend with their kids to make their educational outcomes better. So I think that's something that really surprised me, and that is very clever to just help children be better at such a early stage.
So, what were the age groups of children that usually you take for your sampling?
We take, yeah, from 4 to 5 years if we're doing if we're doing interventions before kindergarten.
Okay,
But the highest age is 6 years old.
that's interesting. So, one question that is coming to my mind. This is more of behavioral sciences. Where does behavioral economics comes when you talk about different projects of BIP Lab?
Well, the VIP lab focuses mainly on behavioral sciences and not behavioral economics per se. So that's why our approach is more social than economic. But there are other labs at the University of Chicago who also focus on behavioral economics that have very interesting research, such as the Booth School of Business. So yeah, I can send also the link of them.
Yeah, and
They
that
do
that
very cool stuff.
thank you, Karina. This is what I was trying to ask, that if you have some other labs which are, precisely working on behavioral economics, so it will be really interesting to, have guests from there as well. So, how long have you been working at that parenting lab?
How long?
How long have you been associated with parenting lab?
I've been working with them since October of last year, and I finished working with them on June because of the break period, the summer break we had from university. And I hope to be working again with them once we start classes in
Right.
like 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. One more question. How can the insights gained from your research in the behavioral area contribute to more effective education for children, particularly on the broader scale?
Okay. I think thinking as a policymaker, which is what I'm currently studying, I think we can take advantage. What I really like is that I think behavioral sciences and behavioral economics is almost everything. I think we are all guided by nudges, and that's how we live our lives. So I think we can take advantage of that and make interventions that tackle present bias, not only in education, but in general in our lives. I think that's a very important point. And I think that's one of the main findings in the About Time project. And also, what I mentioned earlier about the apps, that they can be beneficial for educational outcomes. Also, apps are cheap to distribute. They can be of free access around the world. So I think that's great, and that should definitely be used. The challenge is what apps work. Like we cannot use any app. Which apps do work? And I think we need the help of educators to help us know which apps are the correct ones for children and learning.
Yeah, because there's one school of thought. I don't know if it's there as well or not, but in Pakistan, probably, parents especially are still very, reluctant on giving their children the mobiles or, making them use anything digital because they believe that it is going to have adverse effects on their eyesight. One example, or it can, lower their cognitive skills. It can make their brains work slow and so and so. But your research findings are contradictory to this, we can say this thinking, because what your results shows is that these apps have been really helpful in improving the skills of the kids. And so how did you see that, after using this app, do you think it also brought some health effects? Like, have you catered on these areas while doing your research?
About health effects, no. However, I do have to mention that it's not just giving iPads to children, it's that children use them with the right apps. So I think that's the key part.
All right. So, okay. So I think we can take more questions as well. If anybody wants to ask any questions, please. Uh, I think we don't have any questions for now. Um, uh, Corina, tell us, how is University of Chicago? How big university it is, and particularly if you can share something related to economics department over there.
Yeah, sure. Well, the University of Chicago is a private research university in Chicago, Illinois, the US. And let me see if I can find how many students there is. It's a very big university. Um, Number of students. Around, well, in 2021, it had around 30,000 students, it says. It's not really exact right now, but yeah. It's a big university. I think it's mostly known for its research and the economics department, particularly. Historically, it's been very recognized. I can send you the links about that as well. The School of Economics and the Booth School, which is the one that does most behavioral economics research.
Thank you. I would love to have those links as well. And when I'm going to write the review of this webinar, I'm going to share all these insights as well. But particularly if we talk about your lab, how much welcoming you are to people, out of University of Chicago. Are there any ways in which particularly our institute, that is University of Lahore, can contribute in any kind of your research work?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're very open to collaborate with different institutions. I can also give you an email of my supervisor, which is the ones that's in charge of doing the connections and designing the different projects that we do. So yeah, if there's something that we can do together, then I think the right person to talk is to her.
Yeah, because Karina, at the University of Lahore, and if I talk about my department in particular, we have a lot of MPhil and PhD students over here. And I'm sure that they will be, very enthusiastic to work on behavioral economics. And they would love if you can engage them in any of the activity. And that is something that will go, unpaid as well. And they are going to, like, you can use them as a resource, and particularly in any of the project you say, they can be very helpful. So if in these lines there is any opportunity, please do share with us, particularly for our MPhil and PhD students.
Of course, I will give you the email.
Thank you so much. And so I think this webinar was actually scheduled for 30 minutes only, and now we are almost reaching to the end of this webinar. We don't have much questions over here, and particularly this might be the reason of timing, because in Pakistan it is the time of Maghrib prayers. So people are usually praying at that time. So particularly, this also gives a lesson that for the next of the webinars, I might need to schedule after the window of 6 to 7 p.m. But however, It was wonderful speaking to you, and I really loved, whatever you told us about the University of Chicago, and I wish you luck for all your ongoing ventures. And yes, I'll be waiting for anything that our university can collaborate with you people. Our students will be very, enthusiastic to look at different opportunities that University of Chicago is offering. So I think I'll wrap up the webinar over here. And thank you so much to all the participants who are over here and who have spent their time in joining us. Thank you, Karina, again for your time. And it has been a wonderful time to speaking to you. Looking forward.
Thank you, Ariva. Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Okay, bye-bye. And this is Dr. Hariba from University of Lahore signing off.